Andrew Conlog, and this is my segment, Andrew Explains It All, where I explain all of it, or hopefully all of it, about a particular subject, about Tucson or Southern Arizona, its history or culture, and by the end, hopefully we know all of it together. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about politics. Now, I don't ordinarily talk about politics on this segment, and I won't, partly because I'm part of this great show, 5 on 20, that really delves into good political information, be it factual or be it well-considered or interesting opinions. But this is an extraordinary time in our country's history in terms of politics, especially because we're all so divided. And what I hope to do today is to tell a story about a great Tucson patriot. And I hope that no matter what side or no matter what part of the political spectrum you're on, you find this inspiring and you find that it speaks to your own sense of patriotism. Now, I don't want to feel like anybody's been bait and switched or anything, so I will say that, of course, I inject some of my own political biases. I don't think anybody can avoid doing that. But again, my goal is to be nonpartisan first and foremost, but there will be a little bit of what I think, so I just hope you don't feel cheated by that. Now, to the story itself, I'm going to take you back once again, as I have in the past couple weeks, to the Civil War here in Arizona. Just as a quick reminder, the Confederate States of America had captured Arizona, coming in from Texas, and had captured the city of Tucson as well. Now, they'd captured it without a shot being fired because, well, partly because the citizens of Tucson were pretty sympathetic to the Southern cause, which is interesting. But the man that eventually took over the administration of the military government of the Confederacy here in Tucson was a man named Captain Sherrod Hunter. And the first thing he sought to do was consolidate the Confederacy's rule. Now, he knew that a lot of local luminaries were Southern sympathizers, but he was searching for anybody who might not be. And one particular man's name came up to him. He was a businessman, he was a politician, and he was well liked by everyone in the community, but everybody knew that he had a great affinity and loyalty to the United States. So Captain Hunter brought this man before him and essentially made an ultimatum. He said that this man could keep his property and keep his businesses and keep his prominent place in the community, and all he had to do in return was denounce any loyalty to the United States. Captain Hunter said that the United States was a thing of the past, the Confederacy was a thing of the future, and that it would only be sense if this man denounced any loyalty he had for America. And the other side of that was that if he did not renounce the United States, he would have to give up all his property, he would have to leave Tucson, he would be given one horse, one rifle, and as many provisions as he could fit on that horse, and he'd be cast out into the desert, which sounds bad, but maybe not completely bad to our modern ears, but what everybody in Tucson knew, and what this man knew, and what Captain Hunter also surely knew as he was making this offer, was that that was essentially a death sentence. If you were in a town on either side of this border, you're okay, but any of the areas between, and especially the open desert, was Apache country. And the Apaches at this time in history were very angry, understandably, and would kill any lone traveler like that, almost certainly. So this was a death sentence, basically. And the man, by all accounts, he was very polite, he was very refined and reserved, and he told Captain Hunter that he understood his offer and appreciated this meeting, but that he would never be able to renounce the United States of America because the United States had given him everything. And he wondered when a convenient time for him to begin to prepare to leave Tucson would be. And that's just what happened. He was given his horse, he was given his rifle, he was given his provisions, and he was cast out into the desert, where miraculously he did survive. I don't know exactly how he did it. I don't know if he knows exactly how he did it, but he was able to somehow make his way to New Mexico, and fortune smiled on him. Not long after, he was able to connect with the Union troops, and they were able to get him back to Tucson after Tucson had been reconquered, and he basically started his life once again. Now, you'll notice I haven't mentioned this man's name. Well, his name was Estevan Ochoa, and he was born in the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. And he had a much more prosperous and much more service-filled life even after that. He was a prominent businessman all his life. He was part of a shipping firm that shipped by wagon from Mexico to America. It's called Tully and Ochoa. He's a partner, so named after Ochoa in there. And he was also very active politically. He was one of the first mayors of incorporated Tucson. And not only was he one of the first mayors and one of the first Mexican-American mayors, but so far he's the only Mexican-American mayor that Tucson has ever had. But his political life didn't end there. He was part of the Arizona Territorial Legislature as well. And his crowning achievement there was that he introduced the legislation that got public education to Arizona. Not a lot of people were too keen on it, but everybody who knew Estevan, and also everybody who knew Estevan liked Estevan, if we're to believe what people said. He was a very likable and loving and caring man. With his kindness, but also with his powers of persuasion, he was able to eventually get everybody on his side on public education, and public education came to the territory. Now, the job for public education wasn't quite done yet. There was a school built in Tucson, but when his fellow Tucsonans got sick of the idea as well and didn't want to finish the school, Estevan finished it with his own money. And for the rest of his life, he promoted education, even among women and girls, which was rare at that time, especially on the frontier, but he was personally responsible for getting some girls educated here in Tucson. And sort of as a cap to his life, when the Southern Pacific Railroad came through Tucson, which is a very important day in Tucson history, and the president of that railroad, Charles Crocker, came to, I guess, hit in the final spike on the rail, which was a golden spike, to celebrate. The man that handed him that golden spike at the train depot on behalf of the city of Tucson was Estevan Ochoa. And to do a final sort of editorial on this, I would just like to, I suppose, point out the obvious that right now in this country, immigration is a very big issue. And before I say anything else, for the people that are concerned about immigration, I understand your concern, and I want you to feel that I understand it and feel that having concerns like this and having political opinions like this are legitimate. And I don't necessarily even want to change your mind on this, but all I would ask is anybody out there, maybe especially if you're not initially too keen on it, the idea of immigration, that when you think about where you're going to put your mental energy and where you're going to put your money and your time and your efforts in terms of politics on this issue, just remember this story. And especially if you're a Tucsonan, remember this story and remember this man and his really extraordinary patriotism. And I hope you can believe, and even if you can't believe it, I hope you can understand why someone like me might believe that the Estevan Ochoas of the future, the great, great patriots of America's future, and I suppose even America's present, may not be born here and may not be here yet. And that the actions we take now will have an impact on whether these extraordinary patriots ever make their way here. With that in mind, this is Andrew Conlog signing off from Andrew Explains It All. I'll see you next time.